Hello and welcome to this video on creating an elderberry tree bonsai. An elderberry tree is a nice little bonsai, but the most attractive features are the somewhat resilience to mistreatment, interesting trunk bark texture, and the floral display followed by berries. The only notable downside to the elderberry is the rather slow development of girth and fast appearance of new long branches that need to be kept in check. Our tree is beginning as a specimen we dug out of the garden. It was growing in an out-of-the-way corner and went rather unnoticed for far too long, and this led to it becoming quite a nuisance. So out it came. We did leave the elderberry in a growing pot for about 2 years before now, so it could recover from what we did at the time. And now that it feels safe, secure, and comfortable, it's time for surprise work. The obvious first step is going to be to cut it down to a useful size. While we could try and style this as an unusually large bonsai, that would be a lot of work. So, to keep our schedule manageable, life balanced, and to avoid all the issues associated with having to drag it inside and out of the cold during winter, it's going to be cut down to something more reasonable. It's still not going to be small by any means, but definitely smaller. Next we need to remove the branches and parts of the trunk and trunks full stop that we're not going to use. This is a problem with the elderberry when a bonsai, or at least when being turned into a bonsai. It is however a very useful feature when coaxing or pollarding for firewood. All these new branches and trunks could theoretically be cut off and used for firewood later on. For a bonsai though, we don't really want them. This will leave us with a rather limited amount of material to work with. We must look at the branches now. The branches need to be cut back to the first form or pair of branches for now. This seems rather extreme, but we do have a good reason. The tree as it is now just does not have a good ratio or transition from the trunk to branches and going on out. It goes from a semi-thick to thin very quickly, and the taper is just not very gradual. The solution, at least for now, is to cut the branches back to just a single pair, or the very first formation of a pair. This will force the branches to become thick at this point. All the growth that would otherwise go into further out from that point is, well, not going to exist for the most part, or at least going to be drastically delayed. All the energy therefore gets localized. The pair of branches that we have cut back to will form new branches, and therefore will get ramification occurring, which is good, but we will also get much smaller new growth, which will have a better ratio and taper compared to what we have now. This is important as the branches are a major focus during the winter period when there is no foliage at all. Understand, elderberries completely go free of leaves in winter, which means they can be a nice winter exhibition specimen, but if you don't have good branch structure, it's not going to work out very well. But also doing this will support a better floral display in spring, when new branches will be putting on the necessary leaf buds, and because they're developing flower buds, they will later on develop berries as a result. Another reason to take the branches back now is simply wiring. Wiring is not easy when it comes to the elderberry. The branches are brittle and have a very bad habit of breaking, not bending. We minimize the impact of any broken branches by cutting as many of them back as far as possible, and also reducing the amount of branches that need to be wired, and more importantly, how much of the branch needs to be wired. Further to this, other tools such as scissors, secateurs, branch loppers, and anything else you might be using should also be carefully used, as they can harm the very delicate bark that, although looking nice, particularly on older parts of the tree, can easily get damaged, particularly on newer parts of the tree where it's more tender. It will recover, but it can also cause other problems, so better to avoid problems than it is to try and fix them. These elderberries as a whole are perhaps one of the more impressive trees, particularly in nature. But not only do you get a rather pretty flower and a full display of leaves, but those flowers will eventually turn into rather bright berries. The other reason people often have elderberries around is, at least to some extent, due to various claims about its medicinal value, which, in short, not really, but if you enjoy it, you do you. For that reason though, we're certainly not going to be using this for any sort of consumptive purposes. It's just nice to have that transition over time, from leaves to flowers, to leaves again, and then eventually berries. And the berries tend to be quite dark, small spots almost, so they give a bit of variation. Certainly it's not a common species to be using. This has started our elderberry bonsai overall. We'll not be able to do much more than keep its shape by pruning it, pinching out growth, and other basic maintenance work. We'll be watering it, and then basically between that waiting. And it will be a few years as it grows for the desired final appearance. Understand, there's a lot more work to be done, but this is how we're going to get it started. And perhaps starting this is key, as nothing that you don't begin, well, it will never make any progress. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please do post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.